Everybody should say, thank you, Laura Bohannan. I didn't hear you. That's better. She wrote this article as much to teach us about the TEV as to teach us about the hazards of fieldwork. Please click and go to the next. The TEV live on the border of Nigeria and Cameroon. They're the fourth largest ethnic group in Nigeria, but still only account for 2.5% of the population, even though they're 5 or 6 million people. And they live on hilltops surrounded by swamps, which is important to what Bohannan found. Please click and go to the next slide. In terms of their social structure, they lived in stockaded villages. This is before the British conquered. Each had a reception hut, which was controlled by the mature male of the compound. And they were faced in a circle with the entrances facing in, along with the stockaded walls suggests that they were subject to attack. The wives slept in their own huts and they had granaries. Please click and go to the next slide. Unlike the Kung, which were hunting and gatherers, the Tiv were subsistence farmers. That meant they grow things, but they didn't have advanced agriculture. Their main crop was yams, sweet potatoes, and they grew maize for beer. They also grew peanuts, peppers, and several other things that you could see here. Greens, mushrooms, seeds. They raised goats, sheep, chicken, ducks, and guinea hens. Now, in the terms of division of labor, the men would clear the fields and then the women would do all the work. Please click. When you read the article, you'll see that Bohannan appears to be a fool. She's not. She's actually one of the most famous anthropologists of all and one of the first women to enter into the field. But she uses this article to teach us some lessons as well as things about the Tiv. She went to study ceremonies. These are repeated activities. But because of the season, and you'll see this when you read it, this altered what she could do. She also had a bet with a fellow anthropologist who would become her ex-husband in later years, that I also want you to take note of when you read the article. Doesn't this make you want to really dig into the article? And it's important to look at the 4 ways that the Tiv looked at writing, none of which was to tell stories. That should get you really want to read the article. So just one or two more slides and then you could get going. Sometimes I am just so nice, I could pinch myself. Ow! I did. That hurt. Anyhow, these are some of the items you might want to look at as you read the article. And again, we in the West have a way of looking at things, and the Tiv have a very different way of looking at things. We have versions of what we think are the dead, but the Tiv saw them as omens or as witches. We felt that a child should have revenge on the death of his father. They felt no, others. To us, for a brother to marry, a man to marry his deceased brother's widow within a couple months would be very suspicious. To them, of course, it makes sense because you have to take care of her. A woman can't make it on her own. A great king to us might be wealthy. Wealth to the Tiv would be having many, many wives. Then there's this whole notion of omens, ghosts, zombies, and spirits. How revenge is played out. One thing we're going to look at in various cultures is the devil made me do it. In other words, bewitched. People don't commit crimes in a lot of traditional societies. For example, a murder is not committed by a person, but by a witch who possessed the person. Or even when Ophelia drowned, she didn't drown by herself, but the river drowned her. Never scold your mother. You look at things. So that goes with it. If you're mad, it's not your responsibility, but rather it's because you're bewitched. And you should look really carefully at the fake praise the elders gave Bohannan at the end of the story and pay a special attention to how they gave a very different version to the story. Now, who's right? Who's wrong? Hamlet is not a universal story, but is interpreted very differently in different cultures. Now, go do your homework.